Oh, the applause, amazing. Could get addicted to that. Hi guys, we're live again for the Guitar Hour. Hope you're doing well. Dan Smith
Hello.
and Tom Quayle. Hopefully we are live and you can hear us. No swearing, please. So let me start by saying Dan and I have missed a few weeks of doing this because we've been very busy, and we're going to tell you why we've been busy and what we've been up to and stuff. But we've sort of been discussing the Guitar Hour a little bit and sort of where it's going and stuff and what we wanted to do. And we were a little bit concerned that it was becoming more like the Guitar Hour lesson than the discussion that we wanted it to be. Now, we got no problems with that. We liked the idea that you guys were submitting questions and we were kind of giving you answers and stuff. But what we were worried about was we had so many questions submitted that we were dealing with each one in sort of a 5-minute segment and not really getting to grips with it that well. We didn't really have that much of an opportunity to answer your questions in a big way and kind of really teach you in the way that we would like to teach. I mean, we both teach for a living, and we were sort of concerned that we were shortchanging the teaching side of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep this as the Guitar Hour in terms of discussion. So it's just going to be guitar-based discussion. The odd thing might come up now and again, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to do the specific question and answer session. And I know some of you guys probably really liked that. You're probably really angry now. You're thinking, you know, oh man, those guys, they've removed the bit that we really liked. But what I am going to say is, in terms of the teaching side of things, there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing. I mean, I'm sure Dan's got lots of stuff he's going to be doing, but I've got a lot of exciting developments coming up in terms of teaching. And what I want to make sure is that when I teach and I divulge information, I do it in such a way that it's very relevant and it's got a consistency to it and a progression to it, not just giving little bits of information here and there, and you know, there's no kind of continuity to it at all.
The other thing is, from this angle as well, is if somebody sends in a question, you can't say, well, where are you at, or do you know this? You can
there's no
literally
context.
just take it on that face value of what the question is.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in a you know, like another scenario where you've got contacts, or if it's like a masterclass sort of situation, you can say, well, where are you up to? Do you know this? Do you know this? You know, have you checked out this guy? Have you checked out this? And then you can take it from there.
So I'm going to keep doing there's lots of new sort of lesson updates for my website that are coming along, and lots of other cool sort of things that you guys can check out as well. I'm going to start doing some of the free YouTube lessons again, the short free, you know, YouTube lessons where I've got complete control over the subject I'm teaching, and in terms of, you know, some progression and how it fits, and I can make sure I'm teaching it the right way. The idea of kind of just on the fly sort of talking about a subject and potentially not making it the best I can make it doesn't really appeal to me. I also have some cool developments that are coming up in terms of things I can't really talk about right now, but so I know that's a bit cheeky, but super secret things that are going to be happening that should be really cool. If you're into my lessons, or you know, like the idea of trying to play fusion or some little legato stuff or even jazz stuff, I've got some stuff coming up that is really hopefully quite exciting for some of you guys. So, you know, stay tuned for that. So, but we're still going to do lots of guitar-based discussion. It's still going to be related to what you guys do and what you're interested in. So hopefully that doesn't annoy too many of you, but we're really concerned that we don't want to make this just a sort of free lesson that's not too specific and not very focused. It doesn't really make sense to do it that way. So now that that's out of the way, we've got a load of stuff we want to talk about today. The first of which is just a roundup of what Dan and I have been doing. Some of you guys may follow what we do. So, Dan, tell us, the viewers and me, what you've been up to. You've been up to some interesting stuff, so let us know. And while you're talking, I'm just going to turn the gain up on the mic a little bit. I don't know if it's too quiet or not.
All right.
So tell us what you've been doing.
Well, I think last time we did this, I had a trial, sort of couple of weeks gigs with like a Western swing band. It's not specifically all Western swing, but it's kind of marketed like that.
Yeah.
It turns out I've now landed that gig. So
Nice.
I've been doing sort of 3 gigs a week up and down the country, which comes with its own sort of own little things. This weekend coming, I've got 2 gigs in the Isle of Wight, or on the Isle of Wight. I guess I'll be in there when I'm on it.
Yep. Enjoying the gigs?
Yeah. It's been quite a mix, you know, because some of them are festivals. Like I played like a blues festival this last weekend, which I'll tell you about later, because we've got other.
Yeah.
That had its own. It was fine. It went fine, but I'll tell you about that later.
There's some interesting guitarist psychology that.
Oh, big time!
Comes
Big
out
time!
with
Big
that.
time! And some gigs are quite small, sort of upmarket working men's clubs. I did a gig last week that was at a Warner hotel, which I've now found out is the closest thing to a cruise ship on land.
Nice.
It was really weird. It was like basically a cruise ship without all the rocking. Lots of
That
old.
sounds way better to me, to be honest.
Well, it's still, you know, sort of old rich white people.
Cheesy, really cheesy.
It was. I mean, it was a good gig, you know, but it was like, oh, it's like having a weird like Vietnam flashback.
Wow. You were back at Nam. Not that Nam.
Not
Anyway.
that Nam.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, I mean, in terms of, rather than me sort of dive straight into what I've been doing, let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that have risen. I think last time we talked about the kind of the importance of learning new material and kind of not always going for the most complex stuff, but pushing yourself to learn stuff that's musically involved.
Stylistically sort of correct.
So we kind of covered that a little bit, but there was the interesting issue you had with sound on this gig, because it's been different to anything you've done before, and this is an issue that you might find as a professional guitar player crops up a lot. One of the most amazing things I've seen, and I'll sort of let Dan talk about what the issue is that he's sort of discovered, if you like, that's never occurred before, was when I was in Las Vegas. I think I was there in January last time. Been there a few times now, and if you go to all the casinos and you see all the guys playing the clubs, you won't see a single amp anywhere. No real amps at all. Everybody is going straight into the PA. And you don't see a lot of kind of super high-end units like Axefexes or any of the other kind of high-end modelers. It's quite interesting the kind of routes that people have taken to get a direct tone that sounds good, because all of the guys, they play quite quietly within the casinos. You can't have people gambling and talking and doing all the usual things you would find in a Vegas casino whilst they've got amps, 100-watt Marshall stacks, on full. And this is interesting because for various reasons within the band, you are banned from playing it through an amp.
Well, it's not so much band. It's just they've had other guitar players in the past, and they've had amps on stage, and it's basically what happens is there's 5 people in the band, including me. So you've got guitar, double bass. There's also piano, accordion, saxophone, clarinet,
so it's
violin,
quite
and
complicated sound-wise.
Yeah, and 4 vocal mics.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going through the monitors, a lot of stuff going through the PA. So they want that sort of control without having the extra noise on stage, because they have the guitar coming through the monitors as well. So they don't want it. They want to be able to hear themselves with the vocals and other such things.
And this is really common nowadays. Really.
Yeah,
common. Especially
I thought it I was telling a friend of mine about it, and I thought it'd be like, what? That's blasphemy. But he's just got himself into a similar situation. I think he's playing like a tribute act, and he's just doing the same thing, and he loves it because it's easier to set up. If you can make the necessary compromises and get a decent enough sound, in terms of setup, it's so much easier. You don't have to count an amp around. It's less likely that something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is I've just got a little Black Star head that has a speaker emulation out of it, that into the desk, and with a Nova system, TC Electronic Nova system in the effects loop, and it's closer. It's doing better. But we've spoken about EQ and things like that, and maybe a bit of compression.
See, one of the things that I've found, and Dan and I talked about this a little bit, and hopefully this will be useful to some of you guys. If you have a super high-end modelling unit like an Axefex 2, like I use an Axefex 2 and I use it live quite a bit, and if you've got the luxury of having in-ear monitors, like I use, this is not meant to be product placement, but I'm going to show you so you guys know what's going on when I do some of this stuff. I have these really nice ACS custom in-ear monitors that I use, and these basically, they go into a live pack, and the sound is essentially exactly the same as hearing what you would hear on your favourite album or your CD, so it's fantastic. But if you don't have the luxury of doing that, or you're playing a gig that doesn't require that kind of incredibly expensive setup, one of the things that you can do is, like in Dan's case, what sort of I recommended was, if you get a small head that's a real amp, so you've got real tubes to deal with, so it feels and compresses in the same way that you would find with a real tube amp. And then basically what you can do is you can run that via an emulated out in the Black Stars, for instance. A lot of amps these days have these emulated outs. And then you run them direct into front of house and monitor through a monitoring system on the floor, or through, again, you could use in-ears if you wanted to. But what Dan's been finding is the sound is a little bit, how would you describe it, without the EQ changes that we've sort of mentioned?
Well, the difficult thing is I'm hearing it from like a little wedge monitor.
Yeah. Not front of house, obviously,
not front of
because
house.
You can't. I mean, obviously, you're stood on stage.
So obviously, front of house, you've got like the mid tops, and then you get the bass bins, so you're getting a much fuller sound. Whereas I'm just hearing it from the monitor, so it's kind of difficult, but in a way, it has helped some playing, because that's pretty much 95% of the stuff I'm doing is just on a clean tone.
Yeah.
So it means that because you don't have all this, you know, all these effects and all this stuff to hide behind, it means that you end up being very aware of things like phrasing and note choice and like attack.
Yeah, it's a different kind of way of thinking, isn't it?
And you end up sort of playing a lot cleaner and a lot sort of more precise because you don't have, you know, all this other stuff. I don't say hide behind because it sounds like everyone hides behind the effects. But saying that, you know, if you said to loads of guitar players, all right, you've got to do this gig sort of pretty clean, you know, or like we were saying, if your effects unit or something went down, or you're in a situation where you don't have the sound that you would want, or you don't have the luxury of all your expensive gear or you know, whatever else, or if it's not even fitting to the music, it's how do you deal with that as a player?
Yeah, so the actual level of ability you've got to play when the tone is bad, because I mean I know I'm really badly affected by tone. I find it really hard to play, but like I know guys like Andy Wood, for instance. I mentioned this to you before. Andy Wood, amazing guitar player. Andy's got a double album coming out soon, and if you don't get it, you're insane. It's going to be amazing. But
I didn't know about this till before.
Yeah, Andy's new album is going to be phenomenal. But Andy is one of these guys who can plug into anything and play amazing. It's not just that thing of sounding like Andy. There's lots of guys who we all talk about who plug into an amp and sound like themselves because they're using their fingers and the technique is specific to them. But it's that thing of feeling comfortable in any scenario is quite interesting. But what I've found, and one of the things I mentioned to Dan was, if you're in that scenario and things are feeling a little bit flat and they're not kind of pushing in the right way, what I tend to use, I have a parametric EQ on my board. I'll show you the new board that I put together in a minute. But I tend to do like a mid boost around very low mids, sort of 200, 300 hertz, and then around 700 to 800 hertz, and that tends to kind of help a lot in terms of the sound. And I mean, the way Dan is plugged in at the moment, you're hearing everything through a single Rode NT1 mic, so it's not the best scenario. But if you play anything, doesn't matter what you play, just play like some chords or whatever. Yeah. I personally think that's a really nice tone, and in the room it's really nice. And Dan is going direct into the Blackstar HD5 in the corner. Emulated out. The speaker is disconnected. The emulator out is going straight into my sound card, and that's going into a reverb and then an EQ, which is basically got those EQ settings that were present that I was talking about, the mid boosts basically. And it reacts and sounds and feels really, really nice. In the room, it sounds beautiful. I mean, it's on par with, in terms of the volume level that I'm at I'm running through my Port City Pearl with my new 2x12. If you just play again, Dan, it doesn't sound like he's got dynamics. And if we were to play together, if I just gave you, in fact, give me that bossa nova E minor groove you were doing before, because I can't quite play it yet.
I was there.
Yeah. Without being told that he was playing through an emulated out direct into the desk, you wouldn't know. I'm really convinced by that sound, and I think that's a good way to go if you don't want to spend a lot of money and you don't really want to get into the world of modelling in a big way, which if you want to do it in a good way is quite expensive. You're looking at least £500 in most cases. Not always. There are people who found ways around it. I know specific people who found amazing ways around it. I won't mention names because they'll get loads of emails asking them how they did it, and I don't want to do that to them. A good friend of mine, he probably knows exactly who I'm talking about. But if you want to get into modelling in a big way, it's quite expensive. Whereas you can buy these little heads. Like, how much was your head?
Less
than 500 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like 399. It's like 400 quid. That
399.
Was Blackstar HT20 Studio, I think.
Yeah. So you've got this is not an advert for Blackstar. You could like Hughes and Kettner.
I looked at a few.
All sorts of people make them.
Tiny Towers and things like that.
And you just go for the one that's voiced the way or sounds the way you like it. But to use that system and then plug them direct into the PA. and then having a monitoring system that you can use. Or if you're allowed an amp on stage, a small cab that you can have the volume, stage volume quite low. It's quite a nice way of doing things that doesn't work too expensive. You can plug front and the way using an amp normally on stage. You can even, because you're using the emulated out, you can run effects after the emulated out. You could run an EQ, or you could run whatever you wanted to, basically. That works really, really nicely, and it's a cost-effective way of doing that kind of setup. So anyway, I mean,
like option C, isn't it? It's kind
yeah,
of
it's
like,
another option that people
you know,
don't tend to think about.
ridiculously, like big amp or big expensive amp, and then right, well I'll get a modeler instead to go down. It's like, why don't you just get like it's kind of the middle option. Is just get like a small head that's not overkill.
Yeah.
Does what you need it to do. A mate of mine was just like, yeah, I've seen you've got that head. I was thinking about doing something like myself, because it doesn't need a 4x12 and like a 100 watt head. I mean, it's nice to have, but he's not playing arenas, and
this is it.
It's counting one round as well. Like,
I mean, it's like the ActiveX is so cool. It's amazing. One of the best units, in fact, probably the best unit of that type ever made. It's just phenomenal. And obviously, the killer feature is having all of those amps and all of those effects available all the time whenever you need them. If you're doing a gig that requires tons of sounds, that's amazing. But if you don't have that budget and you don't need that level of flexibility, like when Dan's playing, it's pretty much one or two sounds.
Yeah, it's pretty much all clean. I might use a tiny bit of overdrive, but not really for like a really bitey overdrive. Almost, like those old recordings where it's kind of overdriven just because it's an old recording and it's breaking up. It's
like
kind of
like Pete Thorne describes it, like the edge of breakup kind of sound.
Yeah, exactly like that. That, and then maybe like a bit of slapback. It's literally one panel on the Nova system. Bit of slapback delay for like one or two tunes. Bit of overdrive. The boost is on there for solos and stuff.
So I mean,
pretty simple setup, really.
Feel free in the comments section. I mean, don't give us a massive breakdown of exactly what you thought about Dan's tone, but just be honest and say, if you didn't know that Dan was playing direct, I know it's not the best situation to kind of hear the tone, but from what you could hear there, I'd be interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I mean, guitarists have amazing levels of confirmation bias where they will kind of, and I'm exactly the same. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm exactly the same. As soon as someone tells you it's a model, you're like, I can hear. It's direct or it's a model. I knew it. But try and sort of be honest and sort of state exactly what you thought about the tone and how you thought it kind of fared against not necessarily my tone, because as you can see we're using massively different guitars and they're very different levels of amplifier. I'm playing through like a $2.5 grand hand wired amp into a crazy level of cab. So it's not quite the same thing, but just what you thought about it, and let us know in the comments below. That'll be really interesting for us to see, because we think this is quite a lot of people overlook.
Well, like you mentioned about the Vegas guys, I remember there's a guy that came and did a masterclass at Salford University, and he came, and he was a guitar player, and then there was a drummer and a few other guys that were all sort of like session musicians, really. Two of them, the drummer and the guitarist, were on the West End. And I remember emailing the guitarist and I said, do you have any, this was before I did cruise ships and stuff.
Yeah.
I said, do you have any advice, for how to do the working musicians thing? And he gave me all these sort of advices, and he said about guitars. He said, try and have like one of these, sort of like a nylon steel string and all this. But then he said, as far as amps go, he's got all these amps, but he said theatres don't like amps. Like if you play on the West End, there's a lot of guys that probably won't use amps because it's, the theatre doesn't like it in terms of the sound. They can't really control it. So obviously if you're sat in a pit in front of the audience and you've got all the sound coming out, they don't want like loads of masses of noise coming out from the front. They want to be able to control it.
Yep.
And they have all these like, I've heard they're in like different rooms now, so like with the conductor on screens and stuff like that. Right. I mean, I did arrange to go down and sort of shadow him and see what was going on, but it fell through at the last minute. But I'm not sure. I'm in slight contact with the guy who plays for The Voice as well.
Right.
I'm not,
yeah.
Right, in case I don't want him getting like
gives address
rifled with emails and stuff. But he said similar things. It's especially for things like TV and theatre. They want sort of a slick operation, which is all out in their control with the least amount of sort of noise.
Well, you don't have to tell anyone to turn down. You just want to be able to turn them down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the simplest thing. The hardest thing for the guitar player is then the monitoring of everything. I mean, I would recommend in-ears for everything, but again, if you want a good set of in-ears, they're going to cost you. They're worth every penny, I might add, but good in-ears that sound great and feel comfortable, the fitted ones can cost well over $1,000. You know,
You've got to get in a little throne and let them put stuff in your
yeah,
ear
you
as
have to have
well.
all the stuff. I loved it actually. I thought it was fantastic.
Get
I
teeth
really
on.
enjoyed it, but yeah, it's kind of a weird one. But I guess we should move on. So I mean, I'll tell you what I've been up to over the past few weeks. There's been a lot of stuff going on, but the main things. I'll tell you about Guitar Idol first. The newest Guitar Idol competition, Guitar Idol 4, has just launched like a week or so ago. We've already had a massive entries. It's being run by Lick Library again. There's going to be a live final again. It's open to anyone all over the world. If you go to guitaridol.tv, you can check it out and you can submit your entries. I would recommend, if you can, this is not a prerequisite, but I would recommend that if you can, if you're going to submit something, you submit an original tune. It's much more impressive to listen to an original tune than someone playing to an existing backing track. Having said that, if you've done an entry playing to a backing track, don't worry, we will still absolutely look at that, and if the playing's great, no problem at all. But obviously when you come to do the live final, if you select it, it's much cooler if you can turn up and play one of your own tunes. I think it makes much more of an impact for your career.
You've got nothing to judge it against then.
Yeah.
Like if you turn up and you're playing either someone else's backing track or someone else's tune, then instantly it's like turning up with a signature model. People instantly compare that to whoever it is in the first place. They can't go, well, there's less likely that they're going to be like, well, it's not as good as this. It's like, it's more,
Yeah, and it shows another facet to your musical ability as well. You know, we're as judges, and you can go on the website, you can check out who the judges are. There's some great players on the judging panel, and the amazing Laurie Monk is on there again. And
Hey.
Laurie knows his guitar playing, and he knows, you know, compositionally as well. You know, he knows where it's at. So definitely worth thinking about that. If you were going to do an entry and you were thinking, oh, I'll play to a backing track, no problem. Feel free to do that, but just bear in mind, you stand more of a chance of being noticed if you've got a good original composition. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I've been away a lot recently doing various clinics and playing in various places, and had an amazing musical experience this last weekend in Italy, in a place called Bergamo, which is near Milan. If you've not been, it's a beautiful place to go. And I spent the weekend there with a good friend of mine who all of you I'm sure will know, Mr. Martin Miller. Amazing guitar player from Germany, just ridiculous, amazing guitar player. And there's a guy who writes great tunes as well. We played at least one of his tunes, maybe more, I can't remember. He certainly played a few of his tunes, and I was singing away while he was playing them. They were absolutely fantastic, really good tunes. And yeah, we basically decided to, we did sort of solo sets each, and I played some various tunes. I played some Weather Report tunes and some other things, some standards. And then we did a duo set, where we literally just sat down, a bit like Dan and I have done here before, clean guitars, and we did maybe, I don't know, we played for about 5 hours beforehand, the day before, and figured out what tunes we were going to play. Didn't really rehearse anything or come up with too many arrangements, but just did sort of the old school thing that I used to do a lot of. Most of my gigging used to be guitar duo stuff. I used to gig with a great guitar player called Stephen Banks a lot. We recorded a small album together, which is available, or is it available online? I can't remember. I think I uploaded it to, or some of it to SoundCloud, that you guys can check out. Great guitar player, Stephen Banks. Yeah, so we just sat down and sort of worked out which tunes we were going to play, and then played for, you know, did shortish kind of half an hour to an hour sets of duo stuff, and it was just one of the most rewarding musical experiences I've had for a long time, and I think Martin felt the same. So what we've decided is we are basically going to try and organise a combined clinic and gig tour, me and Martin, doing the duo thing. We're going to try and do clinics during the afternoon, and then do a proper kind of decent duo gig in the evening. And we're trying to look for venues for the clinics, and then a separate kind of nice venue for the duo gigs. And I think it's going to be a really nice thing. We're still very much in the organisation process, so nothing's fixed yet. So if you ask us for dates or where we're going to be, we don't know yet. But we know we're going to do it first in the UK. So, you know, share this information with all of your guitar playing friends. Let us know in the comments below if this is something you're interested in. If you guys don't tell us that you're interested in it, and don't let us know that you'd like to attend, it won't happen. So, you know, if you want to see me and Martin do some clinics together and do some duo gigs together, and I can tell you it's probably going to be pretty good, because Martin's involved, so it's definitely going to be good. But we had definitely some musical kind of chemistry going on there. Let us know in the comments below. Feel free to share this information, as I say, with all your guitar friends. Post on my wall, post on Martin's wall. Just let us know, you know, some kind of support that you'd like us to do this. And the more support we get, the more kind of impetus we've got to make it work. And then if that works, which hopefully it will, we're going to try and do the same thing in Europe maybe somewhere like Thailand or maybe in Russia. We'll see how it goes. But without us knowing that people want to see it, we can't do it. So interested, post in the comments below, post on our Facebook pages. I'll put some links to all of that on the video description once this is uploaded and converted. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Hopefully you guys are interested in that. And there's a couple of clips online that you guys can check out from the gig we did in Bergamo. Sounds not great because we were playing in a massive church. So every note you played just ringed up, ringed for, or rang, I should say actually, for weeks. But it was very, very good fun. And if you don't know Martin Miller's playing, where on earth have you been? Go and check him out immediately after the guitar hour. Don't go anywhere yet.
Yeah, that album is probably the best guitar album I've heard in time.
It's phenomenal.
It's got really, really good mix of tunes as well. You know,
Yep.
it's not. I mean, I don't want to say a typical guitar album, but there's a piece on there that's like a sort of duet with piano.
Yep.
And it's just, whew,
Yeah.
mind blowing. You have to go and have a lie down afterwards. It's just
Well,
amazing.
Martin is the true sort of archetypal musician rather than guitar player. I hate doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know, he is a trained jazz musician who happens to play guitar, or plays fusion as well, but you know, writes, gigs a lot, does all the stuff that musicians should do basically. And we could all take a leaf out of Martin's book. He's a fantastic musician and very, very fun to play with for sure. So definitely check Martin out. So now we've advertised Martin's album and Martin's playing in general. Let's move on a little bit. So one of the things we thought we'd talk about, and there's some sort of there's always comical things involved with this, and people like to divulge these stories, is performances that have gone badly wrong.
Yeah, like, you know, the worst moment you've ever had on stage.
And also how you
know,
deal with that, how you deal with the worst moment that you've ever had on stage. And I've had a few, and I'm sure you've had a few.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple that I told you earlier that there's probably been more than that, to be honest, but yeah, those couple definitely sort of rank up there.
I mean, I've had some pretty hairy situations in my past where, and I've spoken to lots of guitar players and musicians who've all had similar kind of issues. Like one of the worst for me, and feel free again to tell us about yours in the comments below. I mean, they're hilarious, a lot of these. I did a dep gig for a big band in the UK called NIJO, which is the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, and there was only a few days before the gig and I was asked to do it, so I said, yeah, that'll be great. You know, I can read charts, I'm not too worried about the reading side of things, and thought, okay, well, I was told there'd be a decent rehearsal beforehand, so I'd know which charts we were playing. Anyway, I turned up to the gig and it was a pretty big venue. I can't remember the name of the venue, but it was in a place called Huddersfield in the UK, which is kind of a town up in the north. Turned up to the gig, took my guitar along, and basically was told there was no rehearsal at all. We were going on stage and there was no time for any rehearsal. So I thought, fine, I'll just have to deal with it. I'm a professional, I'll be all right. Big mistake.
First mistake.
Well, the first mistake was you had to, when you play in a lot of these big bands, you have to wear the uniform, because they like to have, you know, all the banners up and stuff. You'll see on the music stands for the horn section, they have all the banners and stuff on the music.
Like a Michael Bublé gig, you got the little MB thing.
Exactly. It's a traditional kind of thing that you'll see from the Count Basie and Duke Ellington days. It looks really cool, actually. It works very well. And you know, you can't beat tradition in that kind of style of music. So they handed me this NIJO jumper, which was a big red jumper that was an extra, extra, extra large. It was the only one they had. And I'm not an extra, extra, extra large. I'm a large, you know, maximum. So I put this jumper on, the sleeves came down to about here, and I had to roll it up, and so the sleeves were out like this. So I was playing a big 17-inch archtop guitar with these sleeves, so my arms were out like this, so I could hardly get my picking hand to the guitar. Sat down, and the chart was, the pad of charts was like this thick. Just sheets of paper. None of them were in the right order at all. Not a single one was in the right order. And the band leader, we sat down, and the curtain went up, and the band leader went, 142, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm thumbing through trying to find 142. The horn section has started, and I'm hearing that this is pretty high tempo, like eighth note kind of, you know, really quite full on. Find 142, and I'm already sweating like crazy, and I'm wearing this hideous jumper. Put the thing on the music stand, and the only way I can describe it, and this is not my phrase, is like a bird has taken a shit all over the page, basically. It's just dots everywhere. Really specific chord symbols with very specific voice leading in, and I'm looking at it and I don't know where we are, so I'm trying to find and follow the.
Are like, they're all like 5 pages long.
And they're handwritten as well, and people have annotated them and they're really badly written, and you're looking at it thinking, even given a week, this will be quite hard to read. My reading isn't that bad actually. I mean, for a guitar player, it's not bad at all. And I stick this thing on, and I'm thinking, this is horrendous. Find out where I am by following the horn line. Start comping, and I'm really nervous at this point because obviously nothing's going right. Get to sort of halfway through the chart, and things are going reasonably well. So I'm thinking this is good. And at the beginning of the gig, I've been told you've got a couple of solos to take. Didn't tell me which numbers they were in, but I knew I had to take a solo. I was playing through a Fender Twin or something that was sat towards the back of the stage that was mic'd up, and they handed me a boost pedal, a random boost pedal. No idea what it was. I just turned up with a guitar. At this point, this must have been about 10 years ago. I had no idea about gear at all. I just had my guitar and a lead. So I plugged into this boost pedal, and 2 or 3 tunes in, and it wasn't going that well. My reading wasn't quite up to where, you know, maybe it would have been normally because I was nervous. This solo came along, and it was hideous chord changes. You know, I'm trying to read these chord changes. So I hit the boost pedal, and my volume went, it was louder than the entire big band on stage. So you can only imagine what came through the mic that was, you know, where the amp was actually mic'd up. And suddenly everyone in the audience, there must have been 500, 600 people at this gig, all the heads turned and stared at me. And at that point, the gig just went downhill massively, if it wasn't already, you know, crashing and burning. So that was my experience with Nigel. And then to top it all off, as I was exiting the building trying to make my escape without talking to anybody or seeing anybody, some family friends turned up and offered to give me a lift home, which is about an hour in the car. So I had to sit for an hour in the car with these family friends while they discussed, while they did the usual polite, oh no, it was fantastic, we really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I'm sat there thinking, no, I know exactly how that went, and my career is over. So that was one of my interesting kind of, I have a few more as well, but that's probably the worst. Maybe the worst. There's some other ones as well, but that's a pretty bad one. I feel that maybe I should hand over to you now.
I don't know, which one do you think is worse, the Hey Jude one or the Julian Banjos one?
Well, they're both pretty good. Now tell the Julian Banjos one.
I think that's probably in terms of playing wise, that's probably the worst.
Yeah.
So we're playing this Welcome Aboard show on a cruise ship, which is basically, it's the first night. It's sort of like an hour show, an hour and a half, and it's sort of a bit of everything. So you get a bit the first thing will be like with the dancers. So they come on, you play with the dancers, big showbiz stuff, and then they go off, and then the cruise director comes out and tells you about all this, and says, yeah, you'll see them later in the cruise. And then there's a bit where there's 2 comedians that come on and sort of do like little 5-minute slots each, like a little sort of taster, and they're going to be in the comedy club later on in the cruise. So one of these comedians is kind of a sort of Southern American guy, writes sort of comedy tunes on a big sort of Johnny Cash type acoustic.
So he stood there with the guitar basically.
Yeah, he did a bit of guitar stuff, and he does this joke about, and he's playing it badly. And he's previously done jokes about Arkansas, which is where a lot of people on the cruise came from. So then he goes, here's one from for the Arkansas folk, and plays the Julian Banjos thing.
Oh no, yeah. For those who don't know it, that's the deal basically. I'm playing the wrong key, but...
So he plays that, and then I'm supposed to play it from the pit, which is at this side of the stage. So he's over here and I'm over here, in a little orchestra. So I play it, and then he makes this big joke about it, a wise guy or whatever, and then he says, try and follow this junior or whatever, and plays something pretty terrible. And the joke is I'm supposed to sort of stand up, spotlight, you know, kick on the fuzz or whatever, and sort of shred him under the table kind of thing. But this is the first time I've had to do this, so I've sort of worked it up in my mind. Better not mess it up, because it's just me playing, no one else. Just stand up, sort of kick on the dirt or whatever, and I completely forgot how to play.
Anything.
Just this, not everything, confusion wave, and then
what is this? What does this do?
Literally, I was like, and it was. I just sort of put it in A as well. So like, and then sort of took it into the minor so you can get you more rock stuff or whatever. And just blank, couldn't remember where anything was. And then you're sort of chasing it then, and then you've got that thing of your brain's just going, play something fast, which is even worse. And stood up, spotlight, full theatre, totally just binned it. And then after this, like the doors are open at the back, and you can see there's a couple of shops out there. And like the day after, I saw 2 girls from the gift shop, and like, oh yeah, you're the new guitar player. You're really bad.
I mean, it's the ones where the worst for me are the ones where you either know you've been busted because you didn't do the work you were supposed to do, or where everybody starts staring at you. I remember one, I've not told you about this, this is a good one.
Oh.
And this is a good reason for looking after your gear. Make sure you maintain your guitars, especially if you play archtops, because I did a gig, this was again about 10, 11 years ago, when I was gigging regularly as a jazz musician. And I did a gig for the Leeds City Council Awards ceremony. And this was an expensive, serious, posh do. Everyone was wearing, it was like a red carpet event. Everyone wearing amazing sort of gowns and, you know, tuxedos and stuff. We're playing on this massive balcony, and it's just the I don't know if it was Leeds Town Hall or whatever, and it was an amazing venue, and it had all been done up really nicely. And we're playing kind of very kind of polite, cheesy, straight ahead kind of jazz standard stuff. We were just a trio. I think it was a trio anyway. It was a long time ago. And I'm playing on an 80s or maybe a 70s Ibanez, like one of the lawsuit models, so it must have been a 70s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it looked like, I guess the nearest thing would be like a Birdland, like a Gibson Birdland kind of thing. It was a big 17-inch arch top with two floating humbuckers, basically. Great guitar, really, really nice guitar. And it just wasn't well maintained at all. And I'm playing, and I'm in the middle of a solo, and the neck pickup, which is obviously the one I was using, just dropped, clunk, straight into the body.
And inside the guitar?
Inside the guitar, just dropped into the
Alright.
guitar. So the springs and the screws that were holding it in had obviously just failed. And it just dropped into the body, which left me in the position where the only thing I could do, after the massive clunk sound, I think I was playing through a polytone with a reverb pedal. So there was this clunk followed by the reverb from the amp, and then followed by the massive reverb of the room. And every head in that room just stared up at me. They're all eating this posh dinner. Every head just looked up at me, and I went bright red. Obviously couldn't play at that point. And then realised what had happened, and had to kind of go to the neck position, which was the most disgusting, twangy. If you ever played those neck position, bridge position humbuckers on those guitars, they sound awful, really, really bad. And then we had to sort of stop and try and fix the guitar, and that wasn't working, you know. So it was just a really embarrassing thing. Basically, I let down everybody else and the guys in the, you know, who were enjoying our cheesy music by not looking after my guitar properly. So it's my professional kind of issue. I should have looked after the guitar. But you live and you learn, I guess, with these things. So the other thing is how you deal with these
Sometimes
scenarios.
you get over it, you know.
Because they can affect you quite badly.
Oh
I mean,
man, I was like sick for like 3
Yeah.
days after that.
You know,
and the thing is, that was on a say a 5 or 6 day cruise, so I had to wait another 5 or 6 days before I could redeem myself. And obviously I did.
where you pulled out your greatest tapping licks on me.
The tapping finger was not engaged. It was definitely not engaged. I just
Wasn't
worked out
worth the
like.
risk.
I tell you what I did. I robbed the middle bit from a Malmsteen tune.
Right.
Uh,
You get some diminished sweeps in
is
there.
it I'll See the Light Tonight? You know that one?
Oh, what are they? Do some of those in.
Exactly. Yeah, it was something like that. I was just like, I'm having this. You know what I mean? Sort of prepared this stuff, and I like.
You will be mine.
Sort of smashed it. You know.
Nice. So it worked the second time.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it depends how inside your own head, you know, you let yourself get. I mean, that that on a very small scale, if you're in a band situation where, you know, you might be, if you're in like a jazz situation where you might be soloing every tune, if you do a bad solo, you can't sit there and sulk, because it'll affect the entire rest of the gig.
Absolutely, for you and for everybody else as well. And
Yeah,
the audience
it's
will
horrible
know
playing.
as well. If you sit there looking really sullen and like you've got no idea what you're doing, and you're kind of like, you know, you don't want to be there, they're going to figure that out pretty quickly.
I got told off the other week for this.
Go on, tell them this is funny.
Because of the sound situation with the band, I was sort of struggling with the sound and stuff, and I wasn't happy with it. And like the monitor's right here, so you know what it's like being a guitar player. You get quite precious over the sound at times, and every note I was playing, I was just like disgusted with everything I was hearing. So it just made me miserable for the entire gig. And then I got a bit.
You got told off, basically.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, you know.
Stop looking
it
so
was kind of
miserable.
like you can't let that happen. You can't, you know, if everyone else in the band is, you know, really up for it and you're just looking miserable, you know, the kind of band it is as well. If it was like a sort of, you know, rock band and stuff, or a metal band, I guess looking miserable wouldn't be as bad. But when everyone else is like, you know, children's TV happy.
I mean,
you in the corner, you thundercloud.
Yeah, I mean, you can guarantee that you will have bad gigs, and everybody that you know has had bad gigs. you would imagine, I mean, I would imagine everybody that we know, and even the guys, you know, the real super greats, that, you know, legends have had bad gigs.
I'd love to hear some of the stories from, like, you know,
well, I think
like
there was a
Stevie
certain,
Wonder or something, you know.
a certain, what do they call him, Slowhand or Mr. Clapton,
yeah.
who may have had a bad gig the other night for whatever reason, and I don't know too much about it, but I don't think he had the greatest gig of his life. But, you know, if you don't kind of move on from that and just kind of remember that you enjoy playing music, and, you know, if you're doing something that's a constant struggle and you're always screwing it up, maybe consider trying something else, or kind of go and practice it a lot. But if you're making the odd kind of, you know, screw up and you go for something,
everyone makes mistakes. It's very. I mean, I'm not having that anyone will play an entire gig without making any mistakes, or what they deem a mistake. You probably wouldn't notice it, but if they play a note a little bit too early or something, it depends how, you know, how they are on themselves. But there's no way anyone's playing gigs without you know, tiny little mistakes. And the biggest thing is, what I found to get over it is, if you make a mistake, just smile about it. Just like, if you make a mistake, don't be like, oh, you know, shit. Just sort of laugh it off, and it's gone then. Because if you're getting to that mindset of like, right, I made a mistake, I'm not going to make another mistake. You will make a mistake.
If you make it into a bad fart, as opposed to just ignoring it.
Yeah, exactly. Just sort of laugh it off and, like, don't worry about it, because if you do, I think you're more likely to make mistakes. If in your head you're thinking, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're just pulling against yourself then. It's just, there's a lot to be said for what is this, like, performance psychology, is that what you call it?
Well, if you watch, you know, let's say the fairly dire performance of the England football team at the World Cup recently, or if you watch Wimbledon, you watch any of these things where, you know, you're very conscious that the people who are doing these things in front of you, and this goes for musicians as well, are not machines. They're not able to consistently perform the same function, especially in an artistic sense, where you're making it the same every single time. It would be boring if that was the case, obviously, but technically that's the same thing. You will make mistakes. You know, I've done it loads on gigs. I used to have a thing where, you know, I built up in in my own psychology, where if I went for, it was my right hand particular, I used to play in a band where we wrote all the material, and I would improvise all the solos, and for some reason with that band, every time I took a solo, my right hand would fail, and it would make my time feel really bad. And the thing you've got to remember is, when we watch, like, maybe not so much with the England football team, where it's consistently you're frustrated by it, and if you're not English, you maybe the Spanish feel the same right now. But if you watch Wimbledon, you'll see these tennis players at this crazy high level. They make mistakes, and the audience who are watching, they kind of acknowledge the mistake very briefly, and then they move on very quickly. But the player can often get very wrapped up in that mistake, and it can affect the rest of their game. And the best players are the guys who can deal with, I'm sort of making this analogy up on the spot, so I hope it works. The best players are the guys who can kind of deal with that mistake and move on with it quickly enough that it doesn't affect the rest of their game. So you do the same thing as a musician. If you make a mistake, you just deal with it on the spur of the moment, and then move on and try and enjoy yourself again, and try and not let that become the focus of your mind, because if that becomes the focus of your mind, everything else will fall down as well. Yeah, in a big way. Yeah. And also you'll start to develop a bit of a psychology where, or a mental state where you don't enjoy gigging anymore. You start to fear gigging, and you can get into that eternal kind of cycle, which I know, doom. The circle of doom. We talked about it before, and I've experienced this a little bit. I've definitely done it. I don't know if you guys all know for yourselves if you've done this, where you go, okay, I had a really bad run of gigs. Maybe I'll just do some practice, and then when I've practiced, I'll do another gig.
I've blown the cobwebs off,
Yeah, and then what you do is you go, maybe I've not done enough practice yet. I don't quite feel ready, because you're sort of scared about what happened previously. You don't want it to happen again because it doesn't feel good. So you go, oh, I'll do a little bit more practice, then I'll be ready to go to a gig, or substitute gig with whatever. So I'll do a jam session or a recording session or whatever, or somebody's asked me to do something. Somebody asked me to do some session work or depth for a gig, or they've asked me to do this. Oh, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I should do a bit more practice, and then they'll ask me in the future. Just say yes. Just do it again.
Say yes and figure out how to do it later.
Yeah,
that's pretty much there.
In fact, this has become sort of a mantra for my life, because I've had some big things sort of career-wise happen to me in the last few years that I've been really massively thankful for. And let's say, for instance, something like the initial thing that happened to me that was really quite scary. I've sort of had scary scenarios with gigs and stuff before, but where they said to me, as soon as we talked about Guitar Idol before, oh, well, you were in the Guitar Idol live final. And at the time they were talking about playing in front of like 10,000 people or something. which never happened in the end. You know, we played in front of a lot of people, but you know, and when I got there were no sound, very, very brief, if any, sound checks. I don't remember actually having a sound check. My tune didn't quite go the way I wanted it to, so we had to kind of change it a lot. And I was improvising. So, you know, and in the end, you just have to accept and go, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then deal with it afterwards. Sort of say yes and then deal with the consequences, but be a professional at the same time, you know, do it well. So if you're in that state of mind where you're going, oh, I'm too scared, I can't face doing a gig again, go and do it. You'll probably surprise yourself. And if you're constantly having horrible problems gigging, if it's not like stage fright or something that can be conquered, you know, if you're actually screwing up all the time on gigs, maybe consider, I don't know if this is good or bad advice, it's not meant to be good or bad advice, this will be my advice, maybe consider doing something else, because if it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. I mean, I used to, I'm sort of talking too much now, I should let Dan talk, but I used to do sprinting, and I was pretty good at it. I used to have sort of school records and stuff, and then I used to sprint for the county and stuff, and I was pretty good. And I had a few bad experiences, and used to get very nervous before the gun went off. This was when I was like 14 or something. And my uncle was a high jumper in the Olympics and in the Commonwealth Games, and did very well. So athletics was big in our family. So I thought this would be a good thing to do. Had some bad experiences and got so nervous before the gun went off that I felt I was going to be sick, and there just seemed to be no way around it. So I just kind of stopped doing it. I still enjoyed watching it, and I still enjoyed the idea of it, but moved on to something else, and actually ended up playing guitar, which was a good thing, obviously, in the long run. If you find that kind of thing makes you feel ill, or it's just really horrible to deal with, you can probably get help for that, but you know, maybe consider that's not the right thing for you. But if you're just having bad gigs now and again, and you're letting that overtake your ability to play music, you know, just kind of, you know, don't think about it so much. Kind of put it to the back of your mind a little bit if you can, and try and enjoy playing music again.
I mean, on the other side of that is, if you do have like serious problems with it, and you know you get really nervous or anything like that, if you can, you know, make small baby steps and then overcome that,
yeah,
that will be massive for the rest of your life. Not just, you know, musically, but like, because I'm not exactly the like, I used to I've been to master classes with you and Rick.
Yeah, you came to
early
two
on, and was scared of getting up and playing, just jamming and stuff, just because, you know, surrounded by guitar players, or what, you know, what'll happen if this happens, what'll happen if that happens.
They might judge me.
You just talk yourself out of it. I mean, I've mentioned to you that, you know, initially I was a little bit worried about doing these.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, you know, oh, what's going to happen? You know, like, I'm going to get judged. Are people, you know, expecting me to some, you know, shredder or something? Because it's, you know, because there's a lot of that around. But I've likened this to I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently with comedians and such, and you hear the same stories about how they'll go and do a gig, and they'll just completely just die on stage. No one will laugh. They'll get booed off, and you know, these are like proper top comedians that are now, you know, world renowned, you know, on TV every week, and you know, they've got over it, and they just sort of, you do it, and then you take a little bit from it, and then you just.
Well, this is it. I mean, you reach a point. I certainly found I reached a point where you just learn to deal with those issues, and you find a comfortable place on a gig where you don't get so nervous.
Like care. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Not learn not to care, but let's like the right amount, so that you will play better if you're not worried about making mistakes. Because you're like, whatever. What's the worst that could happen?
These days, we talked about this a little bit in the guitar hour before. I can't remember if it was 3 or 2, whichever guitar hour it was, where YouTube, and if we didn't talk about this, I apologise, I've invented this in my brain, but we'll talk about it now. YouTube definitely creates this kind of image of certain guitar players, and this is not directed at anybody in particular, and some people probably think this about me, where they appear to be flawless, because you can do as many takes as you like on a video. You can edit the video if you so desire. You know, recording technology allows you to punch notes in and so on and so forth, which is very useful if you want to get perfect performances of things. But remember, when you watch a video of somebody, you don't know how many times they've recorded that video to get the perfect take, or where they've placed the edits. I have some friends who are amazing at kind of spotting those edits. They see things I would never have seen, like the tiniest bit of vibrato that's out.
I remember, Mark McGuigan.
I know, yes. Yeah. Mark McGuigan, yes, very well.
Mark.
Runs a very nice guitar blog, actually, Master the Guitar.
Yes.
Well worth checking
Check
out.
that out. He posted a video and he played like a shockingly bad note or bent up to the wrong note.
Oh yeah, I remember
And
this.
then he went back and changed the note. So he either nudged it down a semitone or up a semitone, and because he just couldn't face that. Because it was a really good take, and then it was just this one note, and it's kind of like.
I guess the difference with something like YouTube is, and I totally understand why people do this, it's actually not something I do at all. Most of my videos are very, especially the webcam ones are pretty roughly shot, and I certainly don't go in and edit any of the videos, but that's because I come from an improvisation background. That's the jazz world that I come from, and I think a lot of jazz guys are the same. But I can understand why somebody, a YouTube video is there forever unless you delete it. It's not like a gig where if you play one wrong note, people go, whoop, and then it's gone. And then
well, we'll film it and put it on YouTube. So.
Well, these days, yeah, absolutely. But, what I'm saying is don't get into this mindset or this perception that guitar playing is this thing that people can do flawlessly. There are some of those guys who almost are flawless. You think of guys like Tommy Emmanuel or Guthrie Govan, they are almost flawless. Those guys make mistakes too, for definite, because they are not machines. And I make mistakes all the time, whether it's stupid things like timing issues where you go for something and the timing doesn't come off, or when you're comping the timing doesn't come off, or you'll go for a lick. The latest video I put up, somebody quite rightly and very funnily as well, this made me laugh, it was an acoustic legato video. I was just literally I was doing that on an acoustic basically. It was absolute nonsense, and I got up to, I think it was like a C sharp minor 7 chord or something, and I went and fluffed the top note, just missed it with the little finger on the left hand and played it, and it sounded horrible. And a guy put something like, you fluffed one note, oh my god, something like go away and practice or something, something, I can't remember what it was, a lot funnier than what I just said basically. It was very funny. And I think you've got to embrace those mistakes and not be worried about them.
There's guys that will, if you like, I think the fear is, you put something out on YouTube, there are guys that will do that, but they properly mean it.
Well,
you know what I mean? They're like, no, you got that wrong.
Those guys, and again, I know a lot of these guys, especially coming from the jazz world, there's a lot of these guys who, they go out of their way to diagnose and point out every small flaw in your playing. I know one in particular, who I won't mention, but man, does that guy rile me. I won't mention his name, obviously. Some of you guys may know who I'm talking about. Please don't try and guess. But, those guys have a bigger problem than you do, for sure. Because they're not enjoying music anymore.
No, it's gone way past that.
It's sort of a similar thing to when people talk about bullies and they talk about how, the bullies obviously got some problems because they're bullying you. No, I'm not equating this to bullying at all, but I'm just saying it's a similar scenario where the person who's stating, oh, you made a mistake, oh man, did you hear what note you played there? Oh, he's
so
not,
the guy from
his
The
time
Simpsons.
feel sucks. These guys have stopped enjoying music. Which guy from The Simpsons?
Is it Nelson?
Oh, that guy.
It's exactly
Yeah.
that.
That's a really bad impression, but you know the guy we mean. Hopefully.
He's older now, he probably sounds like that.
His voice is finally broken. But yeah, these guys, they've stopped enjoying music, and they kind of project their own issues onto you as a player. And if you let them kind of get into your skin and under your skin, you're going to have big problems basically, because they're going to put you off playing. And what you'll find is if you just ignore these guys and you play for the reasons that you initially played for, because you enjoy playing music, you enjoy playing the guitar, things become a lot easier again.
You get a lot better quicker as well, because you're not aiming for, I don't say unachievable things, but you're just going to get on with it and just play because you're enjoying playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The biggest bit of advice I ever got was just this guy walking past me. It was at the end of like a night out in Venice. So it was a ship thing. I wouldn't just go on like a mad stag do to Venice or something. And he was just like, just keep playing, man, just keep playing. And it's not really that specific, but it's true. It's like, just keep playing. Don't get annoyed with it and stop playing, or think that you're too this or you're too that, or you need to be better, or just keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, you're always a work in progress.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just keep. That's quite a deep advice, really. Do you know what I mean? Just keep playing. It's like.
Yeah, I mean, and remember that, whatever you do, there's always you know the flaws in your playing. You know exactly what they are, and so long as you don't try and tell people that you're either better than you are or try and project that you're better than you are. You know, if you're recording YouTube videos or whatever, you know, whatever it is, and you're always making those absolutely impeccable, but you know that what you're doing is you're editing all of your videos and you're doctoring notes here and there.
It's when people do it.
And then you have to go and play in front of somebody and it doesn't, you know, well, there's only one conclusion you can draw from that. Don't make yourself appear to be what you're not. Just be yourself, and then how can you go wrong? You know, you might make the odd mistake or whatever, but aim to be more than you are, but don't project yourself as being more than you are, if you see what I mean. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I mean, it's things like, you know, if you're gonna put like a solo over a backing track or whatever on YouTube, and it's like some flawless solo with loads of like, you know, tapping and stuff.
All of your
like,
best kind of...
all your best tricks really, and then call it improvisation. That's
It's misleading.
It is misleading. It's that
You're misleading yourself.
the new term that I come up with, which is
Here we go.
Here we go.
Does it end in shit?
No, it definitely doesn't. It's shred stitch.
Shred stitch.
Shred when you just like stitching
Stitching.
together all your best licks.
I like it.
Bit
I
of,
like it.
Bit of shred stitch.
Yeah. Which is fine, by the way.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Do that,
It's
but
just
don't call it an improvisation.
yeah. Don't you know? The thing
Why
is
do
then
that?
if you turn up and then you meet these guys and it's like you might try and jam with someone at this thing or that thing where you have to finally meet, and then you sit down and it's like, right, what do you want to play, and people just go to pieces. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, we've all seen it.
yeah.
It's a
It's like
strange
some of my favourite players sort of on the scene, if you like, are guys that are just really sort of humble and they're like if you ever speak to Jack, he doesn't ever sort of try and say that he's like some perfect player. If anything, he's like
He will always talk
he's like,
himself down. Yeah.
I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, mate. But it's obviously he has.
We're
Jack
talking
Gardner.
about Jack Gardner. Yeah.
But
he
he's
can
like,
play for days. Yeah, amazing player.
licks for days.
Licks for days. All the Hollywood shit.
All the Hollywood shit.
But improvised.
But he pulls it off big time.
And in no way are we suggesting that improvised music is better than anything else. You know, it's just that if you're going to present something as something that it isn't, then obviously you're setting yourself up for some problems, and that's when people start to stop enjoying music and make it into more of a kind of sport, and it gets a bit weird, basically.
Yeah, it's all a bit like the metal thing with the recording things at half speed and speeding them up and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at this list and the time, it looks like we've pretty much covered everything. The only thing I didn't get to do was I just very quickly wanted to show you this new board I've got, and then we'll have to call it a day because we have to be quite strict with the time tonight. This guitar hour was arranged very, very late in the day. We only arranged to do it yesterday, and actually only properly got to do it today because I've had a load of work being done on the house today, so I wasn't sure if we could do it or not. Which is why it's been quite quickly arranged in terms of Facebook posts. Next time when we do one of these, we'll sort of keep the same system. We'll have more of a discussion. We'll probably do
more like a sort of podcast thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we were toying with the idea of setting up like a Twitter account for this.
Yeah.
And then people, we can interact with you guys and we can get tweets sent in at
Absolutely.
us and things like that. We can have like I've got ideas for topics that can be.
You can discuss stuff with each other and that kind of thing, so it becomes more of a community.
Community, man.
Yeah, exactly. The next guitar we're doing, I can't give you a date yet. It's going to be fairly soon. Before I go away to Spain to do some teaching at the end of July, we're going to be having a giveaway as well. We have a little competition, so we're going to be giving away a copy. I can say this, can't I?
Yeah.
A copy of Riff Station. So you'll be able to win a copy of Riff Station, which is a really cool piece of software, basically, that allows you to do all sorts of cool things for transcribing and for breaking down music and for recording and all sorts of cool things. It's a very, very cool piece of software.
Check out, was it riffstation.com?
Riffstation.com. So we'll be giving that away as a sort of small competition in the next episode of Guitar Hour, so definitely check that out. Apart from that, I think that's pretty much all I want to cover. And I just want to show you this board really quickly because I know some of you guys will be interested in this. You guys have obviously seen before some of my stuff. Dan, could you just turn the volume down all the way on the amp so I don't kill...
All the way?
Yeah, all the way down.
All the way.
So just so I can unplug this. Hopefully I can lift this up so you guys can see it. I'm just going to pull that out. Although I'm not sure how well this is going to work. I'll just put the guitar down. So this, basically, when I went to Italy to do the gig with Martin, I needed a small board that I could take. But I had a small board, I had a Nano, but I wanted more stuff on there. And I wanted a switching system. Much like, if any of you guys have seen my One Control crocodile tail loop unit, and it's just come unplugged. So let me just pull this pedal power supply. I have a why is that not working? I have another power supply that's running underneath the board, but I forgot to charge it, so that's not actually doing anything at all. Oh, they've all plugged from there. Anyway, let me show you the board. I'll turn it around. So here we've got what I think is almost the ultimate small gigging board. It's got everything you could ever need on it. It would be more ultimate with another one of the H9s, but then it becomes too big. So this is all housed on a pedal train Nano. If I just show you underneath, I've done a stupid thing basically. I've made the board bigger than the Nano, but it was easier than buying another board. So here's the pedal train Volto, which is the power supply, which is a battery operated thing. Now the cool thing, the thing that I wanted was this switching unit, which is made by One Control. It's the Quayle Tail Loop Mark II, and basically this allows me to plug all of the pedals. I've got a Empress compressor, dual fusion obviously, and it's running it separately, so the two channels are plugged into a loop each. The parametric EQ by Empress, that allows me to just tailor the sound for a particular round, and then the Eventide H9, which is just awesome. And I can basically make presets with these controls along the bottom by selecting different loops, and then just one foot switch press will select whatever pedals I want in the loops basically. And I'm going to do a demo of this probably this week or next week for YouTube, so you guys can check this out. But One Control makes some awesome units, so these are definitely worth checking out. And this Eventide H9 is amazing, absolutely amazing. This allows me basically to have all of the effects from the Axe effects that I normally use, but in a very small package on the road, and it's MIDI compatible as well. So just wanted to show that really quickly. Hopefully this has been interesting and useful for some of you guys. Again, I apologise that we're going to stop doing the kind of more lesson-based material, but it's, again, for a good reason. We don't want to kind of shortchange people in terms of here's a tiny piece of information, here's another tiny piece of information that's completely unrelated to that piece of information. So stay tuned to sort of my website and some upcoming kind of announcements I've got. I'm going to be doing a lot more tuition material in various forms. Again, some very exciting announcements with that, and Dan's obviously got some cool stuff on his YouTube. Check out.
I should be doing the Beyond the Lick thing.
Beyond the Lick is really cool.
I've had like the next 3 or 4 planned out for ages, but as I was waiting for a little bit of gear to sort it out, so I reckon I'll probably do that demo or something when I get that cab.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry it's a little bit shorter than normal. We have to cut off now because we've got quite a bit of stuff to do after this, actually.
To eat.
Well, we've got to eat. That's a big thing. Yeah, we're both starving. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching. And remember, post comments about Dan's tone, about your gig experiences in terms of, what you've had issues with, your funny stories, and also how you've overcome those as well. That'll be really interesting to hear about. So if you want to post in the comments section, we'll get that Twitter account up and ready, and then you can start having a chat there. So we'll see you soon, guys. Cheers. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.